Hey everyone, we're back and finishing the second part of our short story by Arthur C. Clarke, The Secret. So we are all on the page that starts with, "You haven't given me much to work on." So we left off with Chandra and Cooper going to the medical research facility, and they are going to be investigating what's going on and what's being hidden from them here. So let's see what's happening in the medical research section of the moon. "You haven't given me much to work on. Remember, I'm only a cop. I lack your vivid journalistic imagination. All I can tell you is the higher I get in medical research, the colder the atmosphere becomes. Last time I was here, everyone was very friendly and gave me some fine stories. But now, I can't even meet the director. He's always too busy or on the other side of the moon. Anyway, what sort of man is he? Dr. Hastings? Prickly little character, very competent, but not easy to work with. What could he be trying to hide? Knowing you, I'm sure you have some interesting theories. Oh, I thought of narcotics and fraud and political conspiracies, but they don't make sense in these days. So what's left scares the heck out of me." Chandra's eyebrows signaled a silent question mark. "Interplanetary plague," said Cooper bluntly. "I thought that was impossible." "Yes, I've written articles myself proving that life forms of other planets have such alien chemistries that they can't react with us, and all that our microbes and bugs took millions of years to adapt to our bodies. But I've always wondered if it was true. Suppose a ship has come back from Mars, say, with something really vicious, and the doctors can't cope with it." There was a long silence. Then Chandra said, "I'll start investigating. I don't like it either. For here's an item you probably don't know. There were 3 nervous breakdowns in the medical division last month, and that's very, very unusual." He glanced at his watch, then at the false sky, which seemed so distant, yet was only 200 feet above their heads. "We'd better get moving," he said. "The morning shower's due in 5 minutes. Okay, so here, number 5. Clarke is playing on 2 meanings of cold atmosphere. Which type of figurative language is this? When we're using 2 definitions of a word at the same time to create like a play on words, which one does it actually mean in this circumstance? So if you forget what figurative language technique this is, feel free to pull up your Quizlet resource. You can find this under supportive resources in Canvas. And we're scrolling around, and we are looking for something that is a play on words, 2 definitions of a word being used at the same time. All right. And next, number 6, the Latin prefix inter means between. What does Cooper mean when stating he thinks the secret behind the medical research is that there's an interplanetary plague? So inter, between, planet is in here, plague. So we could say something like a disease, transferred, between planets. Alright, let's go on to the next page. The call came 2 weeks later in the middle of the night, the real lunar night, by Plato City time. It was Sunday morning. "Henry, Chandra here. Can you meet me in half an hour at Airlock 5? Good, I'll see you." This was it. Cooper knew. Airlock 5 meant that they were going outside the dome. Chandra had found something. The presence of the police driver restricted conversation as the tractor moved away from the city along the road roughly bulldozed across the ash and pumice. Low in the south, Earth was almost full, casting a brilliant green-blue light over the infernal landscape. However hard one tried, Cooper told himself it was difficult to make the moon appear glamorous. but nature guards her greatest secrets well. To such places men must come to find them. The multiple domes of the city drop below the sharply curved horizon. Presently, the tractor turned aside from the main road to follow a scarcely visible trail. 10 minutes later, Cooper saw a single glittering hemisphere ahead of them, standing on an isolated ridge of rock. Another vehicle bearing a red cross was parked beside the entrance. It seemed that they were not the only visitors, nor were they unexpected. As they drew up to the dome, the flexible tube of the airlock coupling dropped out toward them and snapped into place against their tractor's outer hull. There was a brief hissing as pressures equalized. Then Cooper followed Chandra into the building. The airlock operator led them along curving corridors and radial passageways toward the center of the dome. Sometimes they caught glimpses of laboratories, scientific instruments, computers, all perfectly ordinary and all deserted on this Sunday morning. Okay, so what's going on here? Let's see. Before we do, let's take a look at our embedded questions. Number 7, all sentences can be sorted into one of 5 verb moods: indicative, imperative, interrogative, subjunctive, or conditional. Here, Chandra's asking a question: which verb mood is this? If we forget verb moods, we can go back to our Quizlet. And in the Quizlet for verb moods, I have all of them listed and defined for you. So if you click on verb moods, here we go. We have a list all here. So we're looking for one that is... We are looking for one that is a question. And we know that questions are interrogative. So we're going to be placing interrogative there. Interrogative. Okay, and then number 8, all sentences can be sorted into one of 2 voices, active or passive. Active is when the subject of the sentence is doing the action, and passive is when the subject of the sentence is receiving the action, or the action is being done to it. So nature guards her greatest secrets well. First, we're looking for our subject, nature. We're looking for our verb, guards. Is nature doing the guarding? Yes. This is an example of active voice. The subject is doing the action. Remember, passive voice has to have 2 verbs working together, and the subject is receiving the action. So, we can now flip this and put nature's secrets are guarded well. Now we have our subject, secrets, are guarded, receiving the action, and we have 2 verbs. So now it's in the passive voice. Okay, let's continue. They must have reached the heart of the building, Cooper told himself, when their guide ushered them into a large circular chamber and shut the door softly behind them. It was a small zoo. All around them were cages, tanks, jars containing a wide selection of the fauna and flora of Earth. Waiting at its center was a short gray-haired man looking very worried and very unhappy. "Dr. Hastings," said Coomaraswamy, "meet Mr. Cooper." The Inspector General turned to his companion and added, "I've convinced the doctor that there's only one way to keep you quiet, and that's to tell you everything." "Frankly," said Dr. Hastings, "I'm not sure if I care anymore." His voice was unsteady, barely under control, and Cooper thought, hello, there's another breakdown on the way. The scientist wasted no time on such formalities as shaking hands. He walked to one of the cages, took out a small bundle of fur, and held it toward Cooper. "Do you know what this is?" he asked abruptly. "Of course, a hamster, the commonest lab animal." "Yes," said Hastings, "a perfectly ordinary golden hamster. Except this one is 5 years old, like all others in this cage." "Well, what's odd about that?" Oh, nothing at all, except for the fact that hamsters live for only 2 years, and we have some here that are getting on 10. For a moment, no one spoke, but the room was not silent. It was full of rustlings and slitherings and scratchings, of faint whimpers and tiny animal cries. Then Cooper whispered, "My God, you found a way of prolonging life." "No," retorted Hastings. "We've not found it. The moon has given it to us. And we might have expected this if we'd looked in front of our noses." He seemed to have gained control over his emotions, as if he was once more the pure scientist, fascinated by a discovery for its own sake and heedless of its implications. Okay, woo! Interesting. This is going good. Number 9. Chandra Coomaraswamy, the Inspector General, has been a helpful ally to our main character. Describe Chandra's personality and cite a quote in MLA format that supports you. Remember the lead-in and citation of author's last name, page number. Okay, so here, how would we describe Chandra Coomaraswamy? I would say that he is reliable. I would say that he is determined. I would say that he is strong-willed, right? So you can come up with whatever you want. And for the quotation evidence, we're going to start with our lead-in. So a quote that shows Chandra is strong-willed is, comma, quotation mark. Now what I want you to do is you're going to go in, you're going to find a piece of text that you think is showing that. You're going to type that here, write that here, and then at the end we're going to put our author's last name and then our page number we found it on, period, at the end. So I want you to pull your own quotes. I'm not going to put one there, but find one that you think shows a character trait for Chandra Coomaraswamy. Make sure we have that citation at the end and the lead-in at the beginning. Alright, and the last page. On Earth, he said, we spend our whole lives fighting gravity. It wears down our muscles, pulls our stomachs out of shape. In 70 years, how many tons of blood does the heart lift through, and how many miles? And all that work, all that strain is reduced to a sixth here on the moon, where a 180-pound human weighs only 30 pounds. I see, said Cooper slowly. 10 years for a hamster, how long for a man? It's not a simple law, answered Hastings. It varies with the sex and the species. Even a month ago we weren't certain, but now we're quite sure of this. On the moon, the span of human life will be at least 200 years. And you've been trying to keep this a secret? You fool, don't you understand? Take it easy, Doctor, take it easy, said Chandra softly. With an obvious effort of will, Hastings got control of himself again. He began to speak with such icy calm that the words sank like freezing raindrops into Cooper's mind. Think of them up there, he said, pointing to the roof, to the invisible Earth, whose looming presence no one on the moon could forget. 6 billion of them, packing all the continents to the edges, and now crowding over into the seabeds. And here, he pointed to the ground, only 100,000 of us on an almost empty world. But a world where we need miracles of technology and engineering merely to exist. Where a man with an IQ of only 150 can't even get a job. And now we find that we can live for 200 years. Imagine how they're going to react to that news. This is your problem now, Mr. Journalist. You've asked for it and you've got it. Tell me this, please. I'd really like to know. Just how are you going to break it to them? He waited and waited. Cooper opened his mouth, then closed it again, unable to think of anything to say. In the far corner of the room, a baby monkey started to cry. Okay, we have a couple things going on here. So, wow, the secret is people live to be 200 years old if they live on the moon. Now, this is great, but also terrible because it's going to create mass panic back there on Earth, people are going to be trying to get up to the moon so they can live to be 100, but we don't have the money or the technology or the space for everyone on the Earth to move up here. So now the dilemma is, does the journalist share the secret with Earth and create like this mass panic? Or does he help them keep the secret? And it's like, what is morally right? What is the right thing to do? It's really hard to think of. So here for figurative language, please refer back to your Quizlet for figurative language if you need help. The first one is we're seeing repetition here. We're seeing all being repeated multiple times. So going to that figurative language Quizlet, we're scrolling, we're looking for something where it's a deliberate repetition of a word or phrase. We see that there is an anaphora. So for number 10, anaphora. All right, here, this other one, we see Clark comparing two things with like as a key word. Words sank like freezing raindrops in Cooper's mind. We know this one is going to be comparing with like or as a simile. And then this last one here is understanding significance. Cooper has a huge decision to make. What would you do? So here, you're going to brainstorm. Think to yourself, what are positives of sharing this secret? Telling Earth that, hey, if you live on the moon, you could be alive for 200 years. What would be the positives of this? And then on the flip side, what would be the negatives of sharing the secret? Why would it be problematic or a bad thing to go back and tell Earth, hey, you could live to be 200 on the moon? So once you have your positives and your negatives, think to yourself, would you share the secret or would you keep the secret? Okay, this is really fun. I love the last line there. In the far corner of the room, a baby monkey started to cry. That's a good one. We're going to check back in tomorrow. We're going to make sure that we're done with our web quest. We're done with our exploring the author. We're done with our guided reading and get all of that squared away. And then we're going to move on to analyze theme and message in our text on Thursday. All right, see you then.